For centuries, humanity has lived by a simple rule: work harder, and the results will naturally follow. We assume that if we just do more, our rewards will increase. If we push harder, we will move faster. Yet anyone who has ever forced themselves to work through exhaustion or over-engineered a simple problem knows the reality of this logic. The harder we pull on a knot that is tied too tightly, the more secure it becomes. We find ourselves stuck in what can only be described as a terrible paradox. When we strive indiscriminately, we diminish our outcomes, and only when we understand the disciplined art of subtraction do we find true progress. But this is not a modern idea or a new system. It is centuries old, recognized across many different cultures and deeply studied in psychology. In order to understand why less effort leads to more results, we must first look at how we mistake motion for progress. In the philosophical framework of ancient Greece, a clear distinction was drawn between two types of activity. Kinesis was movement, transit, the exhausting process of going from one place to another without an intrinsic purpose other than arrival. Energia was activity that contains its own fulfillment, where the means and the end are intrinsically aligned. Much of modern striving is trapped in mere motion. We are constantly reacting, writing, and optimizing, mistaking how busy we are for actually making a real difference in our lives. But energy, like water, loses its pressure when it is diverted into 1,000 small channels. When we scatter our attention across an endless number of tasks, we cannot physically progress. A block of marble does not become a masterpiece because the artist strikes it with 1,000,000 chaotic blows. It materializes because the sculptor spends hours standing still, observing the grain, and then delivers a few precise, deliberate cuts. The beauty of the statue is not created by the material added. It is revealed by the restraint shown. When we apply this to our own lives, we see that the primary obstacle to our growth is not a lack of effort, but an excess of interference. This brings us to the core of the paradox. Real productivity requires the willingness to do less, but to do it with absolute conviction. The classical thinkers and ancient masters understood that mastery is born from economy. Seneca famously warned that to be everywhere is to be nowhere, noting that a life spent rushing from one demand to another is a life half lived. When we stop believing that we always have to be producing, something remarkable happens. We can finally hear what really matters over all the background noise. We start to see the few things that actually make a significant difference, instead of wasting all of our time on 1,000,000 small tasks that just chew up our day. But this is not an excuse to be lazy or do nothing. It is an opportunity to be intentional. It means looking at our work and our daily habits and asking ourselves what would happen if, instead of trying to force things, we just let ourselves focus. True growth just happens naturally when we give it enough room to develop. We have to remember that growth cannot be forced any more than a tree can be pulled upward to make it grow faster. Embracing the philosophy of subtraction means we finally stop fighting reality. We discover that when we subtract the unnecessary motion, the noise, and the hollow exertion, what remains is not less achievement, but real, enduring energy.